Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. I'm Nick, here with you again for another whiskey review. This time, as promised, we're going to be talking about the Bushmills 10-year-old. Now last week we did Bushmills Original, which you see here, and we sort of, without any notice or anything, just launched into a little mini-series on Bushmills Irish whiskey. So, this is just, for me, the next in line, next in the trajectory. Now, of course, somebody had asked about Bushmills Black Bush, and of course, didn't want to disappoint you. Got that here for you. We'll be doing a review on that next weekend, so look out for that. And then hopefully by that time, I might be able to get my hands on the 16 and then the 21-year-old. It's going to be a little bit harder to find. They're not the cheapest things in the world, but I'll definitely try. So, the Bushmills 10-year-old, sort of the same style, really, of all the Bushmills bottles. You'll notice a lot with these Irish whiskeys that they all have sort of a similar bottle style that is very significant in terms of which brand you're going to buy. So Tullamore has similar bottles, within the Tullamore line. Obviously, it just makes sense for branding purposes. But it's just interesting because you could go to a bar and these could all be, turned sideways or something, and you're looking at it from a distance, and you can tell it's unmistakably Bushmills. So that's interesting. You also get a nice little tin, always just for a little aesthetic value. They don't really go crazy with the price. I believe I got this for, $36 recently. So that's not too bad for a 10-year single malt. Really not too bad at all. Well, let's pour a little bit of it. Now I'll also tell you, just in case you've been watching this review series for a while, you'll remember a long time ago, and you sort of always see this in the reviews as what might seem to be an aesthetic thing, but it's actually a little mini barrel of whiskey that's in there, and it's been aging for a good 7-8 months now. So I just had a little bit of it today just to see where things were at. We started with a clear spirit. We sort of coated the barrel, really, just gave it a little finish with Guinness, filled it with that. We used an Irish poaching, and that was in there for a good 2-3 months or so, and then, of course, we took that out, and then strained it all, put it back in, because you get sort of the wood particles in there, because they can't be perfect when they make these barrels. So we gotta clear the Guinness out, and then we put the when ready poaching back in, which was a pretty decent proof. It wasn't like crazy or anything like that. I'll have to get the bottle out when we do sort of the final result of this whiskey. That'll be a separate review. But it's just in case you have been following that, you know that is coming up pretty soon. But let's get back to the Bushmills, because that's why we're here. And we'll put that over there for everybody to see. Great, wonderful. So, color-wise, we pretty much the same as you'd expect from an Irish whiskey. You got a nice pale gold in there, nice little glow, ambery glow in there. Now again, if you swirl it around in the glass, nothing is going to jump out and go running down the hallway or down the street and out the door and take your car somewhere. It's going to linger around for a little while, so you don't have to like shake it so much that stuff flies out of the glass, because that's obviously stupid. But I know a lot of people out there get a little bit crazy with people who swirl it around a little bit, and they'll say like, oh no, like that's going to shatter it, like it was a delicate glass or something. So that's not the case. Just some lovely, coming right off the aromas, are some nice, fresh, ripe apples. Definitely the note of sherry is in there. Now, as far as maturation, we know that it's at least 10 years old, so the minimum drop of spirit in this bottle is 10 years old at the least. So it's been aged in two types of barrels. So we have ex-bourbon and sherry cask that it's been aged in, and then they marry that together and you get the single malt. Single malt, it can be a blend of malts from, aged in bourbon or ex-bourbon cask or an ex-sherry cask and married together. Still a single malt because a single means one distillery. So there's a little bit of knowledge there. Now also with this, you get two other distinct characteristics, and one is this nice strong undertone of vanilla, which is really quite lovely. And on top of that is really that malty character, that fresh baked bread note in there. Definitely a little bit of honey, a little bit of spice, more subdued than the others. I would say it's the apples, like I'd mentioned before, the ripe apples, and some of the sherried fruits. The sherry is sort of, and that note itself is a little on the sour side. It's not, jarring or foul in any sense, really, but you can tell that it's just a little bit past, sort of like sour grapes, which is interesting. Again, it doesn't take away from it, but just adds a nice character to it. So let's go in for a taste. It's a really nice and smooth. Some of all of those nosing notes and aromas that I got at first, there's definitely a hint of them in there, but what you get in the taste is something a little more subtle, a little more smooth and easygoing and not so punchy, sort of with the different notes in there. But again, not taking away from it. It's still got a nice, the malt character, obviously, it's a single malt, but it's definitely the driving force behind this. And what that means is basically we don't have the sherry that is overpowering it like you get with some Scotch single malts or something like that. Different from the Tullamore single malt that we did in the sense that that was a little bit more sweet and sour. What you get here is something that's more smooth, vanilla, honey. Sort of fresh cut grass. The vanilla is definitely there, but it's something nice and smooth, just really easy going on the palate. It's a slow sipper and just really wonderful. Definitely a little bit of, I'm sensing a little bit of cocoa, a little bit of chocolate in there, which is interesting, sort of on the finish. Now, the finish isn't by any means long-lasting. It goes pretty quick. So, and again, it's bottled at 40% ABV, 80 proof, so you're only going to get so much of what's there in the bottle, right? If it was Bushmills cask strength, which I think would be an excellent idea, and people would pay money for that, I think you'd see a great difference in sort of the real true defining characters that Bushmills has. But definitely from going from Bushmills original to the 10-year single malt is a great step up, especially if you're fond of Bushmills original and you really like the flavor profile, because it's pretty similar here. Now, Bushmills original is pretty generous with the single malt characteristic that's in it. And it's sort of always been that way, really, with Bushmills. And that's something that you go to because of that. So, if you want, say, Jameson has got these really sort of sweet, chocolatey, honey, but like really out there honey. This is sort of more subtle, honey is more the predominant note in Jameson, sort of a little bit of spiciness, but still more fresh, ripe fruits. You get sort of this new, almost like new barrel influence into it, so some of the wood tannins and things like that show through a little bit more. Bushmills is a little bit more smooth, easygoing, vanilla, maltiness, creamy mouthfeel and texture. So those are sort of the subtle differences, and I'll go through, you know, maybe another review later on that's like Bushmills, Jameson, Tullamore, Patty, something like that. Just do sort of a sweep of all of them and really the defining differences and similarities between all of them. So again, be on the lookout for that. So much to do, and you know, to put it up, to do a weekly review, there's almost, you know, you got to keep a pretty lengthy list going of all the things. So let's take one last sip before we go and do a score. Interesting that now it's been sitting just a little while, it's definitely already starting to take on new predominant forms, new characteristics. It's evolving quicker than some other whiskeys would if you left it open for, you know, out in the glass for 5-10 minutes or something like that. You might not get as drastic a change. But with this, I'm getting sort of a transition into these chocolate notes that I was talking about, the cocoa, vanilla, that sort of thing. Still a sense of honey and a little bit of sweetness in there, but not so much of the malt characteristic or that ripe, fresh apple or sherry note that I talked about before. It's sort of these more earthy, sort of chocolatey, you know, chocolate root notes in there. But definitely great. Definitely something worth picking up. Like I said, if you're a fan of Irish whiskey, it's something pretty affordable and good quality stuff. So you can't go wrong with that. I'll be looking forward to the Bushmills Black Bush, and hopefully we'll pair that with our Jameson Black Barrel that we did a while ago. I can't even remember when that was. It was so long ago, and there's been so much in between. But so we'll look at the differences between that. So for Straight Talk Whiskey, episode number 51, Bushmills 10-year single malt, 87 out of 100. It's got a ways to go. It's not the best in the world, but it's pretty decent, and it does the job well, and it tastes great. So there we are. There you have it. There's another week gone. I hope you have a great week. As always, if you're going to drink responsibly, and we'll see you next time.